What's going on, guys? Braces here with my picks for the most interesting lists from ETC 2018. I will have 3 major picks from my most interesting lists, and I will have some honorable mentions. I will try to focus more on those 3 lists, and you will find the lists on the screen. I will not read them. You can also find them in the description down below. So first of all, the third spot for me is Italian Kingdom of Equitan list. I've played with it quite a bit before the ETC, just to test it, just to have the feeling. It's quite standard Bretonnia, but there are some little details that make it very good, and there are some details that, in my opinion, are a bit wrong and can be exchanged. So let's just start with the pros and cons of this list. So the main advantage of this list, in my opinion, is that it has a very small footprint. It can really take a very small part of the table. Why is that an advantage? It is because you can really freely move through the battlefield, and you can focus the one side of your opponent's army. The second very important thing is that the peg load is very safe. Some people tend to choose the hippogriff load over the peg load, but peg load with 5 Pegasus, with Skirmish and Banner of Roland is as safe as it can be. Also, the list can play very pushy, but also when the matchup is very much against you, you can run away and pretty much no one can catch you, and with Druidism and high armor saves, there is very little chance that they will be able to get more than 13 points from you. It is pretty designed and fast, as I said, mainly due to inclusion of Questing Knights and Pegasus Knights. Questing Knights can be exchanged for Grail Knights, but Questing Knights bring more bodies, and Questing Knights have effectively charge 10 if they are choosing the right targets. Also, very good thing about this list is that the peg load can play either in the unit or outside the unit, and the same the BSB will most likely be in the quests, because else the realms lose the extra impacts. But thanks to the offer fealty, you can play your yeoman very much outside of your general leadership, because you will still most likely have at least leadership 8 and the BSB. Obviously, Druidism, it's a decent magic, but on the other hand, and you have 4 small units to chaff, so that's okay for Bretonnia, I guess. So the biggest con, in my opinion, is basically the Druidism, which is also a pro, but I'm the player who doesn't like to play either with Druidism and against Druidism, just because in the first turns you basically have nothing to cast. The spells you get through are pretty insignificant, and the healing is not that fast anyway. But it really helps to annoy your opponent and save a bit of time. You have no shooting phase. You have like 10 bow shots. That's nothing. That's very bad. And the core units. So mainly the realm unit is very dependent on getting charge off. If you don't get the charge off with the realms, then you are basically done for. The other problem is that the general, since it likes to fly around, not exactly 12-inch from the models, you are very likely to not have the leadership 9. You will most likely be stuck with leadership 8. And if you have your general by your units, then you are wasting the huge potential. The small problem is that the main lances are very long, but that's basically how Bretonnia plays. You can make the units a bit smaller, so it's a bit easier. But okay, so I have one of the deployments you could see. That's actually from my game against Orcs and Goblins. Obviously, this is not very standard deployment, but Bretonnia, and especially this one, is excellent at going out of the corner. I actually deployed like this and then proceeded to go out of the corner very fast. So by turn 4, I was basically at the half of the table, and by turn 5, we are already done with the game because my opponent had no units left. The thing is, with 16-inch march, you don't need to deploy straight away from your opponent, although it is very good sometimes. Then, on the other hand, you sometimes need more space to stop your opponent from advancing too fast to you. So what I want to do is always at this kind of lists, I want to see what elements of the list are not very necessary, and I think that all of those elements that I've put on that I've colored red are not that necessary for the list. They are good, they are nice additions, but you can play without them. So if you make small adjustments and change the core a bit, you can actually get like 600 points, and I still think that the feel of the list is here. Nothing much has changed. You can obviously pick only few of those to get out if you like them, and there are some substitutes you can get there. So there are some things that I would like to see in this list based on how I played it. So the main thing is I would like to have a 1-up rerollable general near my army. I think 1-up rerollable models are generally very important and are a fine addition to block big blocks of infantry. Also, this will make the Peg Duke feel more risky, so it will give you more opportunities to strike when needed. Scorpions are ridiculously cheap, and they don't hit that much, but they change your opponent's deployment a lot. You can also go for the cheap version of the Duke, so just make the BSB 1-up rollable. So pay 15 points for the Alchemist ally and the 50 more for the Dusk Forged, but then you don't get the World Save, so maybe you might as well go with Crystal Salvation. Also, to compensate for the lack of magic, you could try the Shamanism Damsel, I guess, with the Adept. Then maybe you don't need the Druidism Master, then maybe you can stick only with Druidism Adept and have potentially 2 more chat units. And also the Storm Clarion is always a good addition. So I got it out because I don't feel it necessary, but I think it's a good fit in this list because it allows you to push very hard. Then there are some decent choices, so you can put the Green Knight in, and you can just put another Hippogriff in here. I presented one of the easiest builds to make, so 1-up rerollable with Humility to have built-in BSB, and with Questing Oath just to charge harder and fight better. So, off to the second list. The second list is United Nations Orcs and Goblins. It was actually recommended to me by Thomas from Team Germany to look. I was very skeptical at first, but then I read into the list a bit more, and I really liked it. So the list is basically two blocks of goblins with fanatics, 3 giants, idol, some cowboys, and some magic. So not really a standard list, but I think the Mad Gits shenanigans are very nice. So the pros. You have a very versatile magic phase. As you could have seen there, you had Shamanism and Pyromancy to choose from, and then you have the Witchcraft to boost your movement a bit. The core is suited to have as many fanatics as pretty much possible. Then what I'm mostly afraid of in my lists is the high armor saves enemies. So I very much like the triple strength 7 giant. It's very nice. You also have strength 8 on the first round. The Lord on the Boar. He can also just walk in the Savages unit to have the strength 8 a bit longer. You have a very classic but very potent combinations of anvil and hammer. So you basically have the common goblins with shields that can tank a lot of damage, and then you can just put the giants in. You also have the idol with ridiculous amount of toughness. 18-inch BSB plus single models. So basically your cowboys on the flanks can still get the reroll. And then with so many giants and idol, you can very easily hide both cowboys, which might be crucial in some matchups. So the cons is you have no war machines and basically no shooting phase. So that's pretty bad in my opinion. But if you are going for the max offensive list, then that's what you're going to deal with. You have no fast chaff units. You basically have no real chaff units. You have grotlings that are mildly good at chaffing, and you have the Edbashers that are not so good at chaffing, but they can pretend so. But in general, I don't think the chaff is much needed in those lists, since you can be very fast in your opponent's face with your anvils, and they can tank a lot of damage. So that shouldn't be a problem. What I don't like is that you have the designated mage bunker, so the 20 ferals that are pretty expensive, like 250 points, and they do basically nothing else. Then the mage bunker, you can obviously put the boar character in there, and then they can fight a bit, but it's a bit of a stretch. Most of the battles I won't see them actually fighting anything. Maybe some chaff if needed, but then you are probably picking out, if you pick Pyromancy in this battle as well, then you are basically disallowing yourself from using Pyromancy spells. You are also mildly weak to flying opponents, since you don't have a very high charge range, and you have the mage bunker that then you basically have to guard it in some way. Things like Ramphadons can be very dangerous. And then the last con is that you don't have Skull Fetish, which is, in my opinion, one of the best items in the whole game. And especially with the army that goes very fast into combat, then it might be worth taking it. So some sample deployment. So the BSB is in the smaller units, in the 30 guys, just so one guys can vanguard and the other guys can use the 15-inch march to block it. One of the cowboys together with the giant are trying to block the impassable side, and then the ferals are in such position that if they ride to be on the hill, they will be within 18-inch range of the BSB, and the cowboy hero can join them. Obviously, this is one of the deployments where you want to deploy first and go for the first turn. So not so many things that you can try to get out of there. Actually, the Troll Ale Flask and both the Troll Ale Flask and the Plan of Protection pinching are quite good, but maybe the alternative build you can go for the Warlord is Feral Orc Warlord with the Axe of Apocalypse, because with Battle Focus and loads of attacks, you will probably get a better mileage out of that. But on the other hand, the 1-up, 4-up is very nice as well, and with Troll Ale Flask and 5 attacks from paired weapons, you still should be good at not breaking. Then the Binding Scroll, I personally don't really like the Binding Scroll, so there is that. And then there is a problem with the Feral Orcs, but it's very hard to substitute them for anything sensible. So there are some fits in the list, like the Skull Fetish, which I would obviously recommend. Then I think with so many single models, Thaumaturgy is very nice, because the Breath Weapon has lots of targets, and Breath Weapon is one of the best spells in the game, probably. You could go for Goblin Wolf Chariots that will easily zone the flank out, and they can block the enemy from escaping the trap you are trying to set. And then an Usher Wrecking Team, which basically does the same as Goblin War Chariots, but in a bit more unpredictable way, so maybe you don't want to go for the random one. Also, similar to the Kingdom of Equitan, you can go for the Skewerers that are cheaper, but they are a bit worse than Scorpions. So there's that. Okay, so the first two lists are done, and I want to encourage you to watch the second part that should be already on. If you have any comments, please let me know and let them down below. See you guys in another video.